Good afternoon, all. Whether my audio is proper?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll be beginning with one small topic in networking, and then I'll start servlets chapter today. So please be fast enough for the reception. Um, Let me share the screen. First of all, I'll go ahead with the remaining part of URL connection. Okay. It's a simple program that we'll talk about. There is a class in Java, okay, java.net supports a special class called as URL, and there is one more class called, just 1 minute, probably third semester students are joining. 1 minute. Third semester students, please note I have taken your class at 9 o'clock only. Please exit. All third semester students. Padmashri, I think probably you have joined. Um please exit. Okay. Yeah. So we have a special class called as URL and one more class called as URL connection. There is one more class called as HTTP URL connection. Okay. All these three classes, they are useful for knowing the various information that are available with reference to a given URL. Okay. So when I talk about different informations associated with URL, I'll talk about what is the kind of the protocol I'm using, who is the host who has called this URL, and on what kind of port this particular URL is utilizing, which kind of port. It will give in terms of the port number. Okay. And there is something called as inside the URL slash, after URL slash, the folder name is there, then slash the file name, suppose. So I just want to know what is the file from where I'm trying to extract the things. Okay. So you can talk about what is the name of the file which is being accessed right now. Okay. Then to do all these things, I have a special function called, I'm sorry, I'll just run the slideshow. Okay. To do all these things, we have a special function called as open connection. Okay. Be it URL class, be it HTTP URL class, be it URL connection class. So three classes I have which will give various information about the URL. I'll repeat the three special classes which are useful for giving the information about URL, URL connection, and HTTP URL connection. Okay. So various information like what is the type of the content that the URL is sending me, what is the length of the total amount of in terms of bytes, what is the length of the content that is being sent by the URL. Okay. What is the kind of the data that is being sent, what is the data type. Okay. So data type, in the sense when I talk about URL, it is talking about, is it an HTML file, is it XML data, is it XHTML data. Okay. So all those information, all those relevant information are being given by the three classes named URL class, URL connection class, and HTTP URL connection class. So if at any point in time you are asked with a question like this, write a Java program to print the following information about a given URL. Okay, like one, the protocol, second, the name of the file which is getting referenced, what is the length of the content, what is the content type, when the content was last modified, okay, when it is going to expire. All those things, if such things are being asked, then you are supposed to use this URL or URL connection or HTTP URL connection. So I'll just scan through the different functions that are available, and it's very simple to understand. Um, if you want to know what is a protocol upon which the current URL is working, um, sorry for the interruption. Suman, it is fifth semester class. Please exit. I've taken your class in the morning, Suman. Okay. Now, if I want to know what is the protocol upon which the URL is working, who is the host who has initiated the request for this URL? Suppose these things are there. Very simple thing that you need to do is attach get before that. Okay, protocol is asked, you write get protocol. If host is asked, you are writing get host. Simplest program that may be asked to you, okay, which may carry around 10 marks. Okay, simplest program it is. To do all these things, first of all you are supposed to call this function open connection. Okay, this is the function which generates a handler to call these functions which are available. Okay, so get protocol, get host, get port and get file are available as part of URL class. Now extension of this URL class, okay, I have given this example. I'll show you this example by running the code, okay, later on. Now the extension of this is URL connection class. It means what? Many more functions are added afterwards. Okay, afterwards. And even to this, there is something called as HTTP specific URL connection class that are even you have jar file connected. Okay, URL connection class. So, but we will be concentrating on HTTP URL connection and URL connection. Fine. So these are mainly useful for the various resources of the URL or the properties associated with the URL. Only to do that, these classes are being used. Okay. Then we have something called as get content. So it gives you what is the kind of the content the URL is having. Okay, then I will be skipping in between few of the things. Okay, then get content length. It will give you in terms of number of bytes what is the length of the content that URL is fetching you. Then get content type, text slash HTML, or even it is text slash plain. Okay, all those things will be given by content type. Then last modified when the source that I'm referring to is got modified. Sometimes the URL may return a 0 or -1 for this option. 0 or -1, it means what? That particular website, that particular URL which you are referring to, they have not updated the last modified field. Okay, that's why it might be giving a 0 or a -1. And many a times get expiration, when that particular URL will expire. Most of the cases get expiration, I'll get a 0 because URLs that I'm referring to, for example www.google.com, whether does it have any expiry? Never. Okay, so almost all the URLs which are more commonly used, they will return what is called as 0. Suppose some website you have created which is local to you and you have generated the expiration code for that, then definitely get expiration will return you in terms of long integer the time in terms of seconds. Okay, then get URL, it will give you the URL that is being requested. Fine. Then there is something called as input stream, similar to the input stream that we have discussed. This is useful for taking in the input from the URL and printing it on the console. Okay, for all these functionalities, they are available as part of URL connection class. So in accessing these functions, you have to have a URL connection class object linked to URL class, because who is the base class? URL class. You are supposed to create an object of URL class, create an object of URL connection through the URL class. Okay, I'll show you how to do that. Two programs I'll be showing. You will understand it very easily. Okay, now I have an extension of that which is specific to HTTP. I call it as HTTP URL connection. When I talk about simple URL connection, it is not bothered about what is a protocol upon which you are working. Okay. For any protocol, be it any kind of protocol, URL connection and URL class are available. But HTTP URL connection, it is specifically for the URLs which are based on HTTP protocol. Okay, so with this background, let me just, okay, Let me just give you the meaning of response code and header field. Okay, we will think about this later. Now I'll just go back to Eclipse and show you one such example which talks about URL class. Okay. Now I have URL class. What all things are there in URL class? So when I go back, you just can check in the URL class. I have get protocol, I have get host, I have get port, and I have get file. In order to access any of these functions, I have a function called as open connection, okay, which generates an object for URL class. How to do that? Look at this line of code. Okay, I have created a class by name URL class demo, and inside main I have written try, because these things will work under try catch block, which works on URL exception. Okay, so all these things are available as package java.net. Okay, inside try, what is that I have done is I have created one object of URL class with the parameter that I have passed the URL for which I want to know the properties. Okay, you can pass any URL name as a parameter here, not an issue. So when you pass here for this particular URL, all the things that follow, they will be given. Okay. So in doing this, what is the protocol that this particular URL is using? So how can I access that? By using the object that is generated for the URL class, which has been associated with the URL that I want to refer to. Okay, definitely you could have passed any variable here which would have stored the URL if it is true client server application in case of JSP or servlet. Okay, so when you are referring there definitely you are talking about runtime environment URL. Okay, that is different. Here I have given a static URL as a parameter. Now, for this particular URL, what is the protocol? What is the host? What is the port upon which it is working? And what is the file from where I'm trying to access the data or I'm trying to display the data? Fine. So, we will bother about these four things first. We'll bother about these four things first. And uh, when I'm talking about the URL, it is specifically working on the protocol called as HTTP. Okay, it is working on the protocol HTTP. So when I'm working on this, I use what is called as open connection using the object of URL and getting connected to HTTP URL connection. I'll repeat it. I'll call the function open connection on the object of URL class. Okay, so how do I call? URL dot open connection. URL dot open connection. In general terms, this URL dot open connection, when you do, it will return an object of URL connection class. I'll repeat again. Open connection, when you call it with reference to the object of URL class, it will return an object of URL connection class. So when it is returning an object of URL connection class, but the reception end on the left hand side, what is the type of the object that you are creating? HTTP URL connection. It is a subdirectory or subclass of URL connection. So when you are referring to subclass of URL connection, you have to have a typecasting similar to the typecasting that we do in int, float, double, etc. Similar to that, you are doing this typecasting with reference to the class that you are referring. So the within bracket, whatever is written here, it is nothing but typecasting, because open connection always sends back an object of type URL connection. Are you able to understand what I am trying to tell? Or you have any doubts at this point? Please let me know. Is it clear or no? Type yes if it is clear. Okay. Okay. How about others? Nice afternoon. You are getting sleep? Make
No,
it
ma'am.
fast. I'll finish in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Ma'am, why we need to typecast?
Yes, I'll tell it again. Open connection. Open connection will return back the function open connection. When you call it with reference to the URL, it will return back an object of type URL connection. Okay, for your simple answer, I'll show you this example. Okay, just pay attention in this line of code. Have I done any typecasting here? Somshekar, please answer to this. Have I done any typecasting here?
No, ma'am.
No. Why it is not? Because open connection by default will create or will return back an object of type URL connection.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now in this example, what I have done, I have considered HTTP URL connection. So I have to map that to a lower level of class. A lower class it is. Higher to lower class. When I'm doing something like that, I have to typecast. Look at the left hand side. Okay, look at the left hand side. Okay with this?
Yes, ma'am. Instead of HTTP connection, another connection also, ma'am.
Definitely you can go for URL connection. Not an issue.
No, ma'am. Instead of HTTP, what are the other type of connections, ma'am? URL connections.
Only three classes are there. URL connection, HTTP URL connection and URL. That's it.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. See, adding to your question, Somshekar, all other protocols will be covered under URL connection. HTTP is a special protocol which supports most of the protocols. Probably you might be knowing about it because you have been covered with data communications already. So most of the protocols, most of the important protocols are working on what is called as HTTP. That's why this special interest is shown to it. Okay. Otherwise,
Okay, ma'am.
nothing else. Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so in the second example, okay, let me run this code and show you first of all. Okay, first of all, I'll just go through the things that I have written below. Now, I have port number, host name, file name, and the first one I was talking about, the protocol. These four are available as part of URL class itself. So there was no additional overhead of creating any other object other than URL object. But now all other information are either available as part of URL connection class or as part of HTTP URL connection class. Now, in this example, I have called HTTP URL connection class. So, with reference to that, HTTP URL connection supports response code, response message, header field, content length, content type, expiration, and get URL. Okay. By any means, have you come across HTML? Please let me know from your end.
Yes, ma'am. We are
Yes or no?
yes, ma'am.
Yes, you have come across. So whenever you are trying to write any URL, it is either associated with an XML code or XHTML code or HTML. Nowadays HTML is outdated. Okay, we either talk about XHTML or we talk about XML. So whenever you write any XHTML or XML code, we have something called as a response message. What Suppose if I request from the client, if I request a URL, okay, you send me so and so information back to me. When you are sending the request, there is something called as request message. Whenever there is a response, there is a response message, and each response and request is associated with one special code called as unique code. Okay, that code remains intact throughout that session. Once that session expires, code also expires. So every response has a code associated. Um, the response may be, okay, have you come across 404 error anytime? Probably in Eclipse you might have come across that. 404 error, server not found. Okay, that is a code. It's called as response code. There may be n number of response codes available. When you start, probably you have in the 6th semester web technology subject. Okay, there definitely you will come across all those things. Yeah, for now you just think that every response has a code associated. Response code tells what is the kind of the response I'm trying to get from the server. Okay, then when it is responding, definitely it will respond it with a message, code associated with a message. So all those things are available as part of HTTP URL connection class. Then it's very hard to explain right now what is header field. Okay, when I'm trying to tell header information, because you are not learned XHTML, not learned web technologies, it's very hard to tell you how these things are working. Every header response has a header part. I call it as doc type. Okay, there it will try to tell, okay, look, this is the length of the information that I'm trying to send in terms of bytes, and these are the informations that may be associated in the response that I'm trying to send, and each of the response that is being sent is being stored as a field, so it is field value pair, something like that. For example, if you type your username and password and you have used a method called as get, when you click on submit button, username equal to so and so question mark, password equal to so and so question mark, that is called as a query string associated with the URL. So all those things I call as header field key. Okay, probably when I take up servlets chapter, first or second or third example, when I take up, definitely these things will be clarified. Okay, right now you just think that every response has a header and there is a field value pair. Okay, so that it will get. Then I have content length, then I have content type, and content type may be text slash plain, text slash HTML, it may be image, image slash GIF, it may be image slash JPEG. Different varieties of contents are there. Okay, if you have requested for a file may be of doc type, it may be of text file, n number of varieties are there. Okay, and when the expiration will be there, I think I have explained about this. Okay, now let me run this code and I'll just show you the important things that are available. See the protocol on which it is running, what is the host name, okay, and name of the file. It is always referring to after slash whatever the name of the file I write. Okay, most of the times we when we open the website in the web page, slash index.jsp will be there, slash index.html will be there, or slash index.xml is there. Okay, so all those things are nothing but the names of the files which is opened at the first go. Then response code, it is 301. It means what? That page which I am referring to right now is moved permanently, it is not available right now. Okay, that's why the content is 0. Content is 0. The file name that I'm referring to may not be available. Okay, simply I have given an example for you. Now content type, what is the content type that was expected? Text slash HTML, and I have talked about expiration date before. Okay, expiration date, it will be given as 0 or a negative number, because most of the time the expiration time will not be given for the web page that you are referring to. If given, it will give in terms of long integer. Okay, now I'll just go to one more part of this where I'm talking about open connection with reference to URL connection. This also will give me get content type, get content length, get expiration, get last modified, get date. Okay, content encoding, encoded in what format. Okay, all those things are being referred here. and I have taken google.com as an example for the URL. Okay, let me just close this and run it again. Please be patient enough. I'm sorry, I think it is running the previous instance. Let me run this. Okay, you can just see expiration date and last modified are being given as 0 and 0. I have referred to it before only. Okay, date, it will give in terms of it will give the date associated with the current date minus the actual created date, and the long integer it will give. Okay, the difference, it will not, exact date will not be given, it will be giving the difference between the current date and the previous. See, there may be a case that it might have crossed the limit of long integer. Okay, this is not exactly the date upon which it is created. Yes, any doubt at this point, please let me know from your end. So URL class, URL connection class, HTTP URL connection class, all these are useful for knowing the different properties associated with a particular URL. Am I clear with this, or any doubt you have?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead, Ajay.
Ma'am. Ma'am, in this case, ma'am, that HTTP URL connection is like a subclass of that URL connection, right, ma'am?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's why most of the functions are repeated there, because it is taking it from the class.
Yes, ma'am. Got it, ma'am.
Okay, okay, yeah. Yes, any more?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Who is speaking? Multiple sounds I'm hearing.
Ma'am Anant here.
Yeah, tell me.
Yes, ma'am. So can we use the same set of functions for an FTP URL, or is this only with related?
URL
I mean, is
connection
this only
is
related to
useful for
HTTP?
any protocol, URL connection. But
Oh,
HTTP URL, HTTP, under HTTP only FTP comes, right?
yes, ma'am. According to the
Then
protocol level, yeah, FTP comes under HTTP.
yeah, then it covers everything. Those which are not covered under HTTP, like I think probably you have a, yeah, any protocol that doesn't come under HTTP. No, correct? You have to tell me, because you have learned data communications. Anybody? See, I think probably all the IP protocols, that is internet protocols, they come under what is called as HTTP. Okay. So probably almost all of them are covered under these classes only. Yeah. I think I have a question in the chat. Let me refer that. Can you tell about the date again? Date is nothing but the amount of duration in terms of seconds from the current date minus the date upon on which the URL has been uploaded in the server. So probably the answer that you are getting may not be the correct answer. It is just because the limit of the long int might have been crossed. Okay, so um, okay, there is one more question. I hope Aditi, I have cleared it for you. Please let me know. Okay. Port number is -1 for all the websites. It may not be true. Sometimes, probably for google.com, they might have not given you the access for the port number that it is actually referring to. So for the HTTPS protocols that you are talking about, all those who are secured enough, you will not get the actual port number upon which they are working. But probably, if they have not disclosed it, definitely it will come on the local host as -1. I think I have answered your question. Okay. So with this, we have come to networking part, the end of networking part. Okay. Now I'll go to what is called as servlets. Guys, you have to bear with me for another 15 or 20 minutes because I have to start this today, and tomorrow in my class I'll be taking one or two examples on servlets and then ending the session. Okay, then post your third IA we will be covering database connectivity with servlets and then JSP with database. That's it. Okay, so we'll just go ahead with Java servlets. Have you come across any time in your usage of websites, have you ever come across this what is called as a servlet or a JSP? Can anyone who has come across, you can add points to this. You can unmute and very well go ahead. Yes? No? No one? No, not come across. What about Anand?
Ma'am, so basically, as far as my understanding is concerned, a servlet is used to extend the capabilities of any server.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, as far as I know, servlets can take any type of request, but they're mostly used for post requests in cases where the server is, taking a lot of get requests and the servlets are responsible for the post requests, or the other way around. They're basically used to lighten the load on the server in a way and streamline the process a little more better than just the.
Probably your voice is breaking, Anand. Okay, but what you have told is partially correct. I'm so sorry. Battery running out. Okay. So when I take up servlet into consideration, normally we talk about what is called as web applications. Okay, we talk about web applications. When you talk about any web application must work on any web browser that you are talking about. Look, at any point in time, these many programs are being written. There is a client who is requesting for a server would have responded back. Anything that you have done, all those things are working as part of the IDE or the dollar prompt that you're working on. Okay, at any point in time, have you encountered a feeling that a client is requesting server to load its web page into the browser? Never. Okay, all the functions, all the programs that you have written till now, all of them are working on what is called as a premise which is available in the local machine. But when I talk about a special extension to this client server application, I call it as web-based applications. I call it as web-based applications, or I also call as server-side web technology. It means what? The application that you are developing, they are working on the browser instead of the local IDEs that you are working upon. Okay, so this is how a server-side web technology or a servlet or a JSP work. So when you want to run your program, when you want to run your code, the code will be running in the browser, not in the dollar prompt. Okay, this is what is the difference. First of all, I'm so sorry, I have not run the slideshow. Okay, now servlet I can call it as a Java based server side web technology. Okay, web, when I talk about I talk about whenever I talk about web, I will talk about the running of the application on the web browser. Okay, so in Eclipse or in NetBeans, I have a special extension for running such kind of applications. I'll just show you that. I'll go to the Eclipse. You can just see the perspectives that are being seen. Okay, right now, whether it is visible, Please let me know from your end.
Yes,
Is it
ma'am.
visible? Yeah. See, you can just see I have clicked on the blue color marked. This is called as Java perspective. Okay. Now, if I click on Java EE, it is talking upon building an application, web application, which is run on web browser, not on the IDE. Okay. So, this perspective change is more important in running a program on Eclipse or NetBeans. Okay, so I call it as dynamic web content. It means on click of a button, on hyperlink click, it has to navigate to some other page. Look at the things that are happening here. Okay, see these kind of applications, they are termed as server side web programming, and they are done by either servlet or JSP. Okay, now in doing this I have various ways in doing this. First thing that I will bother about in this case is servlets. Okay, then I will definitely take up JSP. So when I start JSP, I'll be talking about the differences that are there between servlets and JSP. Definitely. Okay. The very important difference that is available between servlet and JSP is this. I'll just mark it and then tell it. Okay. This is a very crucial difference that is available between servlet and JSP, but I will elaborate on this when I start JSP. Right now, you just think that servlet is nothing but embed HTML inside Java. Means as a whole, there is .java file. Inside a .java file, I will call the HTML file. Who is this HTML file? What is this HTML file talking about? Please let me know from your end if you are knowing about it so that I can proceed ahead quickly. Tell me whether you are knowing HTML or not. Be fast.
Yes, ma'am.
You're knowing. So what this HTML does, HTML is nothing but a pathway. Okay, it is a UI, user interface, which makes me to move from current location to some other location. So for that navigation purpose or receiving the user side input, I use what is called as HTML. HTML is embedded within the Java code, that is called as a servlet. Okay, now servlet is what? Servlet is server side programming, which is creation of a web application. Okay. Now, there are multiple ways in which I can do this. There is something called as servlet class which is available, and to run any servlet program, I require what is called as a server. That server has to be running before. When you are running it in your Eclipse or NetBeans, that server has to be installed first of all, and it needs to be accompanied with the project that you are working on. Okay, this server is required in order to have the request and response properly shown. Incoming request, outgoing response properly shown between the client server architecture. The client server architecture here speaks about on a web browser it is working. Okay, it is upon the things that you have done already. So the interface literally gets created as if you are working on a web page. Okay, this is the beauty of servlet. So how these things are there? I can call this servlet as a helper application. I can call this servlet as a helper application. What this tells? Any dynamic request that comes, I will bother about it. Don't bother at all. For example, I'll give as an input 5 as the number. On click of the button, it will calculate and give me factorial of 5 on a browser. Okay, for example, I'll give 2 and 3 as the inputs, and on click of add button, it will add 2 and 3 and print the value on the browser 5, the sum. Okay, so instead of working on a simple IDE, you are trying to put your application work on a browser. This is how a servlet or JSP is working. Now, okay, this I'll skip. Okay, a typical servlet architecture, how this works. See, there is a client who has sent a request, and this request may be of varieties of requests. Okay, please pay attention, all of you. Whenever a request is being sent, the request may be sent in terms of get method, in terms of post method, in terms of delete. Okay, the kind of the method that is associated with that request, in accordance to that the request will be processed. Get method and post method are the most important two methods that are available. Okay, probably I have listed them down. Let me just check it out. 1 minute. Yes. So there are multiple methods that are available. Let me just tell you few of the things. Get, post, head, trace, put, delete and options. Okay, among these the most important ones I will be just marking it like this: get, post, delete and put. Okay, so what these do, whenever I call a request with reference to get method, okay, how to use this and all we will see it during the examples, don't worry right now. The problem is right now you have not written any. Okay, please let me know from your end, have you created an HTML file which contains a form, and on click of the submit button it will go to the next page and prints the data has been inserted, something like that? Have you done any kind of that? Probably you have used drag and drop for doing that, or you have written the code. For your project that you are doing right now, probably you have written the code or you have done the drag and drop. Okay, when you have written the code, there we will be having the option form space method is equal to get space action. Have you come across? Please let me know from your end. Form/form. In that form, method is equal to get, action is equal to the path to which the navigation has to happen. Okay, so that method I'm talking here. Get method, when I talk about get method, is normally called as not so protective. Whatever you give in the form, those details are embedded or are shown as part of the URL. When you click on the submit button, whatever you have entered into the form, all those things will be available as part of URL's query string. In the URL, that those things are visible. So normally get method is not preferred in case when I am passing passwords and all. Okay, then who is preferred? Post is the most preferred method that is available. So either get or post, in both of the cases I will be sending the data through the form submission. Okay, so when I'm doing such things, all the requested data have to go, okay, have to go and reach the web server. Then there is something called as container. Who is speaking? And there is something called as servlet, who is sitting at the end as if it is a server. It is behaving as if it is a server and responds to the clients as if the things are coming from servlet to the client. Sorry, server to the client. But actually who is doing it? It is being done by the servlet who is sitting in between. Okay, this is a simple client server architecture, but unlike the previous applications that we have done, here we talk about working of client server application on a web browser. This is the only thing that you have to get from this. Okay, now let me just skip all these things. These are not so important. Okay, get request, when I talk about, see, this is what I was speaking about. Type of the content. Is it text/plain, text/HTML or XML? Is it image/JPEG? Okay, all these things I was talking about in the previous discussions. Now I'll directly go to servlet. Okay. Java specific servlet. Java supports three categories of servlet classes. One is called as a simple servlet interface, or I have something called as generic servlet class. There is something called as HTTP servlet class. When you talk about implementation of servlet, you can either choose an interface or abstract class, or you can choose HTTP servlet abstract class. Okay. But based on the kind of the class or the interface that you have chosen, you have to use those related functions for writing the code. Okay. When you use servlet, we have something called as service method to write the functionality. The functionality is associated in a method called as service method. Be it servlet interface or generic servlet, both support what is called as service function. Service function is a function which supports all the functionalities associated with a servlet. It means on click of a button, what should happen? On clicking the hyperlink, what should happen? That functionality is provided in a function called as service. Any servlet has three very important stages. First stage talks about init, similar to thread lifecycle. Okay. Servlet has three phases. One is called as an init, which wakes up or which creates a servlet. Okay, it's just like an instance of a servlet that gets created. Then there is something called a service method, which talks about doing the action. Then the third one, definitely it is talking about destroy. So three phases of the servlet lifecycle: init, service, destroy. What init does? It wakes up a servlet, creates a servlet. Then service does the functionality that needs to be carried out for which the servlet has been called. Then the third method called as destroy. It is to tell that servlet's work is done. You are no more required. Okay. So three phases of servlet lifecycle. What are the three phases? Init, service, destroy. Then along with this, I have two special functions. One is called as servlet information and other called as config. Okay. So what is this information and config? The information when I'm talking about, it will talk about what is the name of the servlet, where it is located, what it is doing. All those things are got by get servlet info. Then get servlet config. What all are the configuration information associated with the servlet that is generated. Okay. So three important stages you have to remember. Accordingly, you are writing your code. If you use generic servlet, then also I have a function called as service. Okay. But there is a special extension of this servlet class which is called as HTTP servlet. This talks about be specific about what is the method that you are using for doing the things. You are specific at the beginning only. When you are calling the service method, you can call the service method using either the doGet method or doPost method. DoGet when you call, it means that you know that you are using get method for sending the requested data. If you use doPost, you know that you are posting the data which are being requested from the HTML file. Okay, so doGet and doPost can be used instead of the service method. Okay, when I go through the first program, you will see all these things. Okay, guys, I know that you are having a lot of hungriness. Please give me 5 more minutes of time. I'll show you one simple program and then I will stop. Okay, there is something called as HTTP servlet request. There is something called as HTTP servlet response. Or if you are not using HTTP servlet, then I have servlet request, servlet response. What are these request and response? Request is nothing but it is associated with a handler or an object which talks about whenever I'm trying to send the request, I'll use that handler to send the request, or the object with which the data is being requested, that object will be request object. The response when I'm writing on the console or on the browser, if you want to write it on the browser, servlets browser, or on the web browser, if you want to write the response, that response is being written with the response object, the object associated with response. So whenever you want to output, you will use the response object. Whenever you want to input, you will use the request object. Okay. So if you are using HTTP servlet is the base class, then definitely you will use HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. If you use servlet interface or generic servlet class, you will use servlet request or servlet response objects, okay, for sending the request and receiving the response. Please pardon me, this is totally theoretical. I have been talking like anything. Okay. Now, sessions and all, I'll talk later. Right now, you just don't bother about that. Sessions, cookies, everything, I'll talk about it later. So right now, we will be writing our code using the package javax.servlet.servlet. What is this JavaX? It is extension of Java. Okay, so that's why instead of writing Java, I will write now on JavaX dot. Okay, better you can write JavaX dot servlet dot star, because star includes servlet interface, generic servlet class, or HTTP servlet class. Whichever you want to use, you can use. But if you are very specific that I'll be using HTTP servlet, then definitely you can go ahead in writing like this: javax.servlet.http.http servlet. Please do remember these two things. These two things are very important. Okay. Now, there may be throwing off a servlet exception. There may be throwing off IO exception. So, let me just go through. Okay, this is the life cycle. Init service request destroy. I'll just repeat it. The methods that are important for the servlet lifecycle: init, to start or initialize a servlet service, can be either do get or do post. To apply the functionality that is required. Request, it is a special function which talks about requesting for any particular data from the server. This is optional. This may come under service also. Then there is something called as destroy, which stops that particular servlet class. Okay. Now, I'll go to one simple example. Let me open Eclipse. First thing that you need to do is change the perspective to Java EE. Okay. Then I have created already the first servlet. You have to go to File, New, Dynamic Web Project. You have to choose Dynamic Web Project. I'll repeat. First thing that you are doing, change the perspective to Java EE. Then go to File, New, click on Dynamic Web Project. Okay, give the project name, whatever project name that you want to give the project name, say servlet example. Click on no and next. Source by default it will come. Okay, next. And very importantly, you have to check this generate web.xml deployment descriptor. This is more important. Okay, I'll just go back. First thing, you are giving the name of the project. Then click on next. Click on next again. Then check the what is this called as? Radio button checkbox. Okay, check this checkbox and then click on finish. See, once this is created, if you 1 minute. Okay, if you drag this particular project, you have n number of things that are being created automatically. The important things that you have to bother about is Java resources, under which under SRS you are creating your .java file, okay, because servlet is .java file containing HTML content. Then you have web content, which has very important web INF, and there is a creation of web.xml. Why this got created web.xml? Because I have checked that. Okay, when you are creating your project, you have put the check mark on the checkbox that is available. If you have not put, then web.xml would not have been created. This is very important when you are creating any new project. Okay, I hope with this the creation steps are clear for you. Please let me know from your end. The creation steps are clear, or any doubt you have?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
It's clear. Okay. Now, when you are going ahead with implementation of this, under libraries, which is the function servlet example. Okay. Under libraries, usually servlet API will not be there. Okay, because you need to have a coordination among the Tomcat server, any server it may be. Okay, in NetBeans there is something called as Glassfish server, which helps you to run on the web browser. I think WAMP has WAMP server for running any MySQL applications. Similar to that, Eclipse supports special server for running of the web applications, that is called as Tomcat server. You should have installed a Tomcat server in your machine. Okay, and then you can call this libraries, right click, new, sorry, 1 minute. It has to be API. No, why it is not coming? Just 1 minute. Please give me a bit of time. Okay, probably I have not created the class. Just 1 minute. Let me create back by clicking the right button, new, and click on the class. Okay, here you are supposed to create the name of the servlet with which you want to create the file. Okay, similar to the Java projects that you have done. You have created a project, under that you will create a .java file under source. Similar to that, you are giving the name of the servlet example. Okay, servlet example 1. And when you are creating, you can choose among these things. Okay, public static void you want, all those things. Then 1 minute, click on new. It's not class, you have to go to servlet. Okay, I will repeat again. What you have done, you have changed the perspective. You have created a class or a project. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to create a new servlet class. Okay, don't click on class, click on new servlet class, and here you are giving the name of the class. So I'm not editing anything else other than this class name. What is the name of the class? Say servlet example 1. Okay, click on next. It would have given you the URL mapping. This you have to copy. Okay, URL mapping has to be copied. Click on next. Now in this, what is the function that you want? You want do post, or you want do get, you want service? What is that you want? Right now I'll go ahead with do get. Okay, I'll go ahead with do get. Then I'll click on finish. I'll repeat again. Okay, I'll repeat again. Now you can see there is an error getting shown. Why this error getting shown? It is just because libraries doesn't have the library that is required. What is that library? Servlet API.jar. Okay, that jar file need to be imported. So I'll go to build path and configure build path. I'll repeat this again. Please note it down properly. I'll click on under libraries. I'll right click on JRE system library. Go to build path option. Then I'll go to configure build path. Okay, when I go to this, I have something called as libraries, which is available. Click on the tab of libraries, go to add external jars and choose servlet API.jar. Normally, this servlet API will be available as part of Apache Tomcat folders lib. Okay, once you install Apache Tomcat, inside that folder there will be a lib folder. Inside the library folder you will have all the jar files associated. Just double click on it and click on OK. Okay, just observe the difference. Previously it was showing you errors, now the errors are gone. It is just because the linking of the jar file has been done with the project that you have created. Are you all okay with these steps or any doubts you have? Please let me know from your end. I'll repeat the steps that I have told. First thing that you are doing, change the perspective, create the project. I call it as dynamic web project. Don't simply create the project. Go to file, new dynamic web project, give the name of the project, click finish. Okay, and then right click on the src folder listed under Java resources. Under that, right click on src folder, go to new and go to servlet option that is available from the last third option. Once you click on that, give the name of the servlet with which you want to create and go on next, next, and check the checkbox that is available, generate equivalent web.xml file, and then click finish. Okay, are you all okay with this or any doubt? Please let me know. You have understood this?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, may I know who is speaking?
Yeah, Ankit, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, for some of the people who don't have laptop,
Huh?
let's suppose we people, ma'am,
Hmm?
if let's suppose when we will come to the college after means for the regular
Definitely
class,
you will be given an option to work here. JSP and servlets will be taken care in the lab again. This is a clear-cut promise from my end.
so we want these videos at that time also, ma'am. Means we want to progress
Definitely.
with.
Definitely. Man, why you want videos? I'll be live there.
Okay, ma'am.
I will do it. You are doing it parallelly.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay? Don't worry
Okay,
about
ma'am.
that. Yeah? All those things will be handled in those 5 days. Don't worry about that. Okay? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Now what I will do, I will just show you one sample program that I have written. Okay. See, I have already compiled, that's why it has created a class file for it. I'll just go through this program and then I will end the session. Tomorrow I'll be showing you the working of this program. Okay. So right now I've created a file by name hello.java. Okay. I've given the name of the file, the servlet as hello. Now, just have a look at it. It has taken automatically extends HTTP servlet. It means what? I have taken HTTP servlet class, abstract class. Definitely, I would go for either do get method or do post method. And when I'm creating my servlet, I had clicked on do get. Checkbox are there, options are there. I've clicked on do get. That's why do get method is being selected. Okay, and do get method, do post method or service method, any of these have two parameters. One is servlet request object, another is servlet response object. Okay, and when you have request and response content type, what is the type of the content that is associated with the response? It is text/html. It has to be sent as the html file. Okay. um Okay, probably it is 1:40 right now. I'm so sorry for it. I'll be explaining this program and I'll show you the running of the program tomorrow in my class. Okay, I'm so sorry. It has extended beyond 1 hour. I'm sorry for that. And shall we end the class now? No response from you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see the time. I'm seeing the time now. I'm sorry. You might be hungry. Tomorrow I'll be taking 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Okay? So please be prepared for that. And tomorrow's class is very important class. Please attend. Okay, thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all.
Thank you.